Hello, I'm Joy Burns-Roger, and this is your Government in Action. Thanks for joining us. The Ministry of Transport and Housing held a key presentation ceremony for 6 families in Pinecrest Subdivision on Thursday, September 15, 2022. Highlighting the importance of the occasion, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, said affordable homes and home ownership rank on the same level as education. As stated in the Blueprint for Change, he said, the government is committed to providing increased access to affordable housing. At present, providing homes in Abaco is a top priority.
With an effective tripartite working arrangement involving the central government, a quasi-government agency, and a private sector agency, fully engaged and working together toward a set of common goals, the work of the people can and is getting done without undue delays and frustrations. Having said that, it is good to be back in Pinecrest, an affordable housing development located in one of the fastest growing population centers in southern New Providence. I vividly recall that we were here just 4 months ago on the 27th of May 2022, just 4 months after construction commenced in January 2022, where I had the pleasure of delivering homeowner keys to several deserving Bahamian families. We have also conducted a presentation in Central Pines in Abaco on the 1st of September 2022. It was a pleasure for me because in our Blueprint for Change, we committed ourselves to treating home ownership as a basic human right and pledged to increase access to affordable homes through initiatives such as Homes for Bahamians and a rent-to-own program. It was also a pleasure for me because the expansion of home ownership is a fundamental way of making the economy work for Bahamians, which is an important role of any government. Additionally, my government pledged to return to building houses for Bahamians by incentivizing local contractors, by the granting of Crown land, especially in the Family Islands, and by the use of public-private sector partnerships, or PPPs, or 3Ps, as they are popularly called. The Pinecrest Housing Development Initiative is just one example of a successful public-private sector partnership, and this empowering financing mechanism should be used more extensively and more inclusively in our national development as we work together, empower more Bahamians, and ensure that the economy works for as many of our people as practically possible. Our partner in this venture is Arawak Homes, as you would have heard, an expert and leader in the construction industry. And I join with the Minister of Housing in thanking them for their courageous efforts to partner with us and to outlay that which we don't have right now until we're able to repay. So I want to thank them for their efforts. And of course, all due to the skillful negotiation by the Minister who persuaded them to do what they are doing. It is important to note that there are any number of unwritten social contracts between the government and its people. And in the view of the Progressive Liberal Party, access to affordable housing ranks right up there with universal access to quality and affordable health care and universal access to education. That's what we believe, and that's how we view it. Affordable homes ranks equally with those 2 other social contracts that we have with the Bahamian people.
Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable JoBeth Colby Davis, announced 47 homes make up the subdivision.
I wish to highlight the significant contributions of Arawak Homes, the Ministry of Transport and Housing, especially our Department of Housing, the Ministry of Works and Public Utilities, the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, and the Bahamas Mortgage Corp for making today's key presentation possible. I continue to remain grateful to my colleagues for their support and advice. Your presence at today's ceremony means a lot, and I sincerely thank you for your encouragement. Last but by no means least, I wish to pay special requests and acknowledgement to the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance for being the driving force behind this administration's effort to make more Bahamians homeowners. I am honored to bring brief remarks at our second key presentation ceremony at Pinecrest. On January 28, 2022, the Ministry of Transport and Housing participated in a groundbreaking ceremony for Pinecrest. In May, we officially opened Pinecrest and presented keys to 3 Bahamian families. And today, we gather to present keys to 6 Bahamian families. The families who are recipients of these homes represent a broad spectrum of our society, and more specifically include a finance professional, a supervisor in the hospitality industry, an associate in the healthcare field, a tradesman in the oil industry, a clerk at one of our utility companies, and a teacher in the public education system. My sincere congratulations to all of you first-time homeowners. The diversity of the new homeowners is a reflection of our society and a testament to the fact that under the Davis administration, homeownership is possible for all and that housing is a priority. Homeownership is one of the basic forms of human empowerment and allows for the creation of a sense of community. These homes will serve as a place for family gatherings, the yard space, which I was completely impressed by yesterday, because it's a lot of yard space. So I may be able to rent it for a party. It will provide a place for children to play, and neighbors will be able to come together and interact as our families were able to do many, many years ago. It is especially important to note that investing in infrastructure that supports and fosters a sense of belonging and normalcy in the lives of everyday Bahamians is important to safeguarding and protecting our people. And while government is committed to creating greater opportunities for home ownership, we understand that there must also be a shift by members of the public towards home ownership. And we do not intend to criticize Bahamians for their financial practices, but we must note that the path to home ownership for far too many Bahamians is limited by significant unsecured consumer loans with high monthly payments and a high interest rate. As Minister of Transport and Housing, I want to encourage the average working Bahamian to make prudent financial decisions by creating and adhering to a monthly budget and by consistently following a savings plan. I also wish to share at this time with the public that the Department of Housing is currently experiencing a heavy volume of applications. The demand for housing is indeed great. Currently, each customer service agent, each of them, not all of them, each of them individually, is handling over 350 active applications. We therefore humbly ask for the public's patience, and we reiterate that our intent and our mission is to assist everyone as best as we can. I wish to state unequivocally that this Davis-led administration is committed to meeting the demand and expanding the path to home ownership. My sincere congratulations to the new homeowners. In very short order, we will be presenting keys to some additional homeowners in Pinecrest as we are now in possession of more certificates to occupy. So I'm excited about that. As the Minister of Transport and Housing, I wish to convey my sincere thanks to our partners and all persons who have made this dream a reality.
We will have more of your government in action when we return. Welcome back. Officials from the Department of Gender and Family Affairs, Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development, hosted a one-day symposium on the proposed Sexual Offenses Amendment Bill at Super Club Breezes. Representatives from the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, were all in attendance, in addition to large numbers of members of the clergy, civil society, non-governmental, and non-profit organizations. Moderated by the Minister of Social Services and Urban Development, the Honorable Obadiah Wilshcombe, the gathering heard many presentations, including one from Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder QC, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, who provided an overview on the proposed bill and what the new legislation hopes to accomplish. Carissa Williamson has more.
The Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs told his audience that the proposed legislation, which will be disseminated for consultation, seeks to achieve three material objectives.
The first one is to remove the exemption from spouse on the definition of rape. The second one is to address matters of consent, to be clearer on what consent is for the purposes of sexual offenses. So we no longer tie it to the penal code. We put our own definition in here. And then we take the further step to address circumstances where consent cannot occur.
Mr. Pinder said new definitions have been included in the proposed legislation, including the definition for consent.
Consent means the active agreement to sexual intercourse or to indecent assault given expressly and freely by overt acts or words indicating agreement by a person who has the capacity and legal ability to consent. That's the definition that we propose to use in the Sexual Offenses Act for consent as it applies to rape, indecent assault.
Senator Pinder outlined the circumstances when consent cannot occur by law.
If it's extorted by threat or fear of bodily harm to that person or to any other person, if it's obtained by impersonating the spouse of another person, personally known to the person, expressed by the words or conduct of another person, induced by abusing a position of trust, power, or authority, is given by the person originally but withdrawn by express words or conduct and not replaced by an agreement to engage in that sexual intercourse or indecent assault. So there's clear withdrawal of any consent of any kind of sexual activity. It is obtained by administering a substance without the person's consent capable of causing or enabling that person to be stupefied, put to sleep, or overpowered at the time of the act of sexual intercourse or indecent assault. Obtained by a pattern of behavior which has the effect on that person of coercing, controlling, exploiting, or limiting access to financial resources. Then we go on further. Consent and the accused belief that the person with whom he is alleged to have had sexual intercourse or he is alleged to have indecent assault consented shall not be inferred. So consent shall not be inferred by reason of silence or lack of physical resistance on the part or reason of sexual arousal on the part of that person. So this is a presumption, right, that you cannot infer the consent in these two circumstances. That doesn't mean you can't demonstrate that consent exists, but you can't just infer that consent. Whether belief is reasonable is to be determined having regard to all circumstances, including any steps an accused took to ascertain whether that person he had sexual intercourse with or indecent assault was consenting.
New definitions for rape and indecent assault have also been included in the proposed legislation. A key component of the proposed new definition of rape was to remove the exemption from spouse on the definition of rape.
An indecent assault means that the accused touches a person in a sexual way, causes a person to touch him in a sexual way, causes a person to touch a third party in a sexual way, indicates any other sexual contact other than the act of sexual intercourse for another person, exposes himself to any person in a way which offends the public decency, otherwise assaults another person in indecent circumstances, does anything to another person with the consent of that other person, which but for that consent would have been an indecent assault, such consent being obtained by false or fraudulent representation. So consent was given falsely or fraudulently in those circumstances, and does not reasonably believe that person consents to the act of indecency. So this covers sexual matters that don't arise to actual sexual intercourse. What we propose as the definition of rape is as follows. Rape is the act of any person not under 14 years of age having sexual intercourse with another person without the consent of that person, where he knows that person does not consent or is reckless as to whether that person consents. That's the proposed definition. We do remove clearly the exemption for spouse, and this covers the first primary goal of this bill, which I discussed in the beginning, is to remove the exemption for spouse.
Various perspectives were also presented by a cross-section of the audience to, as Minister Wilchcombe described it, have the broadest discussion on the subject. The Social Services Minister said the consultations will allow the country to move from various discussions undertaken over the many years to a focused position that allows the country to take a progressive stance. For your Government in Action, I'm Carissa Williamson.
Minister of Home Affairs, Transportation, Communication, Broadcasting, Energy and Utilities, and the Telecommunication Commission for the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Honorable Odyssey Morris, recently paid a courtesy call on the Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable JoBeth Colby Davis, at her ministry's headquarters, Dockendale House. The two ministers and their delegations discussed a number of matters of mutual concern. Matt Mora has the update.
The courtesy call and subsequent discussions are in line with the Davis administration's mission to strengthen the country's engagement with regional and international communities as a means of advancing the Bahamian public's interests for the greater good. The two ministers covered topics ranging from road traffic matters to air and seaports, the postal service, and e-governance. Minister Colby Davis said the government intends to be transformative in its approach to governance through the use of innovative technological and other strategies.
Things move a bit faster. You know, even if you look within and see how documentation and processing is being done and make some adjustments to speed things along, remove some of the red tape. That's why we're focusing so much on road traffic and post office, because in the Family Islands, we have a lot of comments about how business is done, especially from those departments. And people lean and depend on the post office in our Family Islands. The post office is everything to them. It's even the bank in a lot of cases. Yeah, so for them, if we bring some sort of change to how we do business in the postal service on our Family Islands, that would be transformative. Even if it isn't up to tech level or digitization, it's just that the processes have been updated to make business a little bit more easier. That's transformation.
Minister Colby Davis said her ministry is in the process of developing new strategies that will not only help to make the postal service or post office more efficient and effective, but that will also lead to new sources of revenue streams and other added benefits.
Everywhere has changed and transformed their postal service from the regular general send a mail letter here, there, to now going parcel post. That's generally where every post office is heading, and so you would just be falling in line with what's been happening around the world. It's already done. We've been to a couple of conferences already that's been helping to guide our process, because even though you have the little portion of the post office that's doing that now, there needs to be a greater expansion.
The Transport and Housing Minister said the government will take the same transformative, innovative approach with the Road Traffic Department.
And so we are now re-looking at that structure, because we did a fact-finding mission to Jamaica. They have done an excellent job, and they revamped as well. They had a lot of the legacy issues we had, but their legislative agenda, when they revamped their road traffic legislation, they created routes, they created tags, they created codes, color codes, and zones where you can bring transformation. How you can bring transformation, bring some new energy into how you do business in the road traffic sector. So even your busing system right now, we're getting ready to look at revamping and changing our busing system, so the structure of your busing system, even looking at the different tiers of your plates. And if you could bring some new, businesses into the fold of how you issue out different levels or different types, different sort of plates and stuff. I think that sort of transformation, even with the maritime or the port, the post office.
Minister Colby Davis told a regional colleague that as transportation ministers, they both face exciting and opportune times. Transportation, Mrs. Colby Davis said, is after all the backbone of all countries, as it entails the movement of people, products, goods, and services. Finding the right solutions that will help drive transformation, Minister Colby Davis added, is an objective of her ministry and the government of the Bahamas. For your government in action, I'm Matt Mora.
Bahamas Information Services, in collaboration with the Bahamas Department of Meteorology and the National Emergency Management Agency, present Met Talk with Mr. Jeffrey Simmons.
Today, we will continue our discussion on climate change. Usually, persons will talk about global warming and associate that as if it's the only thing. But really, the problem that we are facing today is not just the global warming, but also the climate change. Changes in our climate, I should say, that goes along with it. Yes, we have seen a lot of heat waves going on this past summer. We've heard about a lot of them throughout Europe and even throughout the southern United States. And all of that is a result of the excessive heat that is available that's creating these heat waves. But associated with them also are excessive rainfalls. We see a lot of flooding going on now in some parts of the United States. And in certain areas also we've seen a lot of droughts. And these droughts are also resulting in forest fires that can last for days and even for weeks. This global warming really is having an effect on our entire climate and what actually goes on. Some examples right here in the Bahamas, we can see that during our summer months, we're seeing a lot of heavy rainfall and excessive rainfall and lightning storms. That's a rare thing that happens during the summer. But because of the excessive heat that's available, we are now seeing it more frequent. We are seeing these lightning storms and water spouts and even these tornadic activities. They are more frequent. Our marine environment is also being affected. Because of the warming of our waters, we also experiencing coral bleaching. Coral bleaching also results in fisheries migrating to other areas because there's no place for them to actually get their food or the shelter that they are used to. We're seeing changes in our fisheries environment and even sometimes see changes in our plants. That what goes on. Some fruit trees, you notice, are bearing fruits much earlier or much later than usual. Climate change affects us all. It affects us as humans. It affects our fisheries. It affects our animal lives and even our plant lives throughout the Bahamas. So be aware of what's going on, read up on it, and see what climate change is all about.
This has been Met Talk with Jeffrey Simmons.
That is all for this week. Thank you for joining us. Tune in next week for another edition of Your Government in Action. I'm Joy Burns-Roger. Good evening.